Welcome everybody to the November 2023 Frontend Masters Hangout. I'm going to talk about everything that happened in Frontend Masters this month, as well as we'll go through industry news. This month, mostly we've been cooking. We've been cooking a lot. Lots of awesome workshops that we've recorded. We're in the studio like 4 days one week, 2 days another. We're in the studio 2 days this week. We have recorded podcast episodes. Yeah, the TypeScript workshops, we've completely revamped our TypeScript curriculum. So we'll be going through and revamping the TypeScript fundamentals, intermediate TypeScript, and then enterprise ready TypeScript, how to set up your whole repo and all that kind of stuff. Node.js with the AI, and then Vite. People have been asking for Vite for quite a long time. So Steve Kinney came and taught Vite, and then also TailwindCSS. Those are two topics that people have been requesting forever. So I'm happy to say that we have recorded those and they went awesome. And along with that, we're scheduling 2024 already. So there's a bunch of instructors that have given us awesome proposals for 2024. So our team is looking through them, trying to pick the absolute best ones. And of course, we've got a ton of workshops throughout the rest of the year. So Mr. Primeagen is coming next week and doing follow-up to his popular algorithms course, as well as blazingly fast JavaScript and even a short course on HTMX. So next week's going to be super fun. And then this Thursday and Friday, we also have technical management with Jem Young and Ryan Burgess. They lead the Netflix web platform. So it'll be really awesome to have some actual technical management material on the platform. They were both engineers and then went on that career path to be technical managers. So a lot of our audience is in that mid-level to senior engineer level. So I think that technical management is going to be a good course to have, because you'll see if it's something you even want to go into. I know folks like Primeagen have been offered the management job and have chosen to stay in development. But yeah, it's definitely a different track. So yeah, this month we launched 3 big courses: Bare Metal JavaScript, the JavaScript virtual machine with Mishko Avery. He created Angular, and before that, he was at Google for a long time. He was a testing evangelist there, and then recently works on Quick. It was really cool because he actually has a hardware background. He started designing chips with like Intel, and then he's able to actually say, okay, this is what happens to your JavaScript. It's translated into machine code this way. I learned that it matters the shape of your JavaScript objects. If you are instantiating a bunch of different shape objects, that's not good. So it makes your code and your objects less easy for the VM to actually optimize. And so when you have objects that are the same shape, it allows them to be easier to handle by the JavaScript virtual machine. So that's something I learned through watching that course. And there's a lot of really good performance tips and like mental modeling for just how JavaScript runs under the hood. So take a look at that course. Then CSS projects, that was another one that we launched last month, and all of those resources are free. And someone just said that AI courses look great. Yeah, we have 2 AI courses. We have a full stack Next project course in AI, and then we also have a first look at ChatGPT and OpenAI API with Max Furtman. So we have 2, and then we actually have one on the way, which is CLI based, like working with Node and the OpenAI API and considerations there. So not actually in a web app, just Node.js and AI. So that course was recorded and it'll be out in probably a couple months. Then we also did a big giant enterprise cloud infrastructure course. It's a fairly large course with Eric Reinhardt, which did our intro to DevOps course. So that's probably for this, we're going to actually get into DevOps and infrastructure, but he teaches you how to build out GitOps and CI/CD and being able to provision and actually manage your AWS resources with Terraform and all this kind of stuff. So it's a cool course, but it's also like so far outside my personal area of expertise. Unless we grow the team and are able to tackle more, DevOps and sysadmin type stuff. I think that's probably the furthest we'll go into DevOps. I think we're going to stick more towards software development. So, front end and back end software development moving forward into 2024. There's still server side languages that we haven't covered that we want to cover in 2024. And yeah, we have a really great lineup that's shaping up for next year. So, yeah, find the right job for the tool. No. Well, I guess if you want to learn Rust, and you're gonna have to find a place to apply Rust, that's for sure. I'm like new to Twitch, so reading Twitch out loud and knowing that I've been trolled, it's yeah, it's a new thing for me. So we'll take a little bit of time to get used to. Next, the Frontend Masters podcast is available on all platforms. So we are now on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and then we obviously put everything on YouTube. So yeah, go check out the podcast. It's on just Frontend Masters podcast on Spotify or whatever platform you like to listen on. It'd be really great to get some feedback because we are recording more and more of the podcast episodes, and we've been incorporating y'all's feedback into it. So yeah, we have 3 more episodes that are being edited right now. And I think the number one request we've gotten is for Scott Moss. And so we've got his episode that's being edited right now. And then also ThePrimeagen has been a big request, and he'll be here next week. So we'll definitely do a podcast episode there. So yeah, check out the podcast, subscribe, and give us feedback. It'd be great. Next, I posted on the blog patterns for reactivity in modern vanilla JavaScript. It's already gotten like over 200,000 views, and people have commented a lot to me that they really like the article. And it's basically just a brain dump of all of the patterns that I've used over my career for wiring behavior to data changes. So when your data changes in your app, what happens next? And there's so many patterns in JavaScript. There's pub sub, there's observer pattern. We have proxies built into the language now. So when your data changes, you can just wire up any behavior to those. But one of my favorite patterns is the extending event target. You can make a class, right, and have it extend the event target. Then basically you get the browser's, event model like baked in. So you can wire up events to that class and fire events on that class. And it's just a really good pattern because you're not having to like fire events on the document or on the window or whatever. You can fire it on that actual class. And I really like that pattern. So that's one of the first patterns in the article. And then I also cover library patterns like signals and observables are kind of a pattern that's built into, RxJS and solid.js. So I kind of cover library patterns. And then also the pattern that we use on the frontendmasters.com courses player, we call observable-ish library. So we actually posted that to GitHub, and that's been in production for, like 6 years or something like that. And it powers our custom player. So when any sort of configuration changes, like playback rate or whatever, basically we just listen to that and hook up a behavior to, adjust the player if any of those settings change. So, and then, yeah, I also cover some additional patterns like rendering data from string literals. Intersection observer is really, really cool if you're building, those kind of marketing effects where you're scrolling down and div or something enters into view, then you want to like animate it or whatever, you can just use an intersection observer. When that div comes into the view of the user, you can slap a class on it and animate it. And I've done that on quite a few marketing pages. It's pretty sweet. So yeah, there's stuff like that. And then, Canvas, the event loop. So yeah, check out that article. It's pretty awesome. So On says, I want to thank you guys for the content here. The TypeScript courses really helped me a lot recently, moving from backend to more full stack. Yeah, you're welcome. Absolutely. So as you can tell, our website really hasn't changed too much as far as design wise. It's changed a lot functionally, like when it comes to the courses player and mobile app features, the search, etc. We've done a ton of work on the actual functionality of the site, but the actual design of the site hasn't changed too much, right? So we've been looking for someone to lead the product design and actually move the website and the design system and everything like forward when it comes to all those applications. We also have like an internal dashboard application. We have a lot of software that powers front end masters. And so having somebody to focus on the actual application design is going to be awesome. So yeah, she just accepted today. So that'll be really, really cool. And obviously it'll take us a while to incorporate, new designs into the website and the player, but it's going to be awesome having someone who's focused on design full time. All right, so let's get into industry news. This whole fact that the top 100 websites do not use valid HTML. I think that my perspective of this is that the browser is amazing. You can basically throw any sort of gobbledygook at it and it will render it. Do y'all remember XML or XHTML where it would throw an error if you didn't have perfectly formed HTML? I just think that is such a bad model because, we just have this amazing browser that no matter what you throw at it, it just renders, it just works. You can see the content, whatever. I've seen some absolute garbage HTML that people have produced and the browser can still render it. And they had really no idea what they were doing when it came to like every paragraph tag. They would just put in like only the open tag and content and open tag, content, open tag, content. They're like, oh yeah, just adding this P gives you space. And it was like, they had no idea that it was a paragraph tag at all. And it's still rendered. So the browser is a feat of amazingness. And the fact that the top 100 websites not using valid HTML, that doesn't surprise me one bit. I remember back in like, was it 2008, people were putting their website and saying like, oh, my website is valid HTML or something like that. And they would put a badge on their website. And yeah, zero people care. Like as long as the information is there, as long as the browser renders it, that's what's great about the web, I think. So yeah, browser error handling is unreal. Yeah, it's absolutely wild. Yeah, the whole Vercel event announced Next 14. The big thing here is the server actions are stable. We also have, 2 recent Next.js courses, one on Intro to Next 13. It was the latest version of 13 where it had app router and server actions. So the content on our website or on Next.js is still up to date regarding Next 14. It should be pretty easy to migrate. And yeah, we'll continue to monitor that. Did a React survey. Go check that out if you want to test your React skills or your React knowledge. That's a good one to go to. We also have a React learning path where if you find out that you're through the state of React, that your React knowledge isn't up to snuff, we have this whole entire React learning path. So check that out. Next, looks like Node is going to try to auto detect what type of module system you're using. So if you used .cjs or .mjs or whatever, or type module in your package JSON, they're going to try to automatically detect that. So that's good. It's a step closer to like what Bun is doing, where Bun is great because you can obviously have different types of module imports in one file. So I guess it's not the same thing, but it's at least a step in that direction of having less config, less boilerplate. If it's using the modern imports, it will just use it. So that's awesome. I'm glad Node is moving in that direction. The select element now has HRs, whatever horizontal rules that you can put in it. That's wild to me that was never there until Chrome, recent Chrome. That is wild. That seems like such an obvious feature. And then I love this article, Web Components Will Outlive Your JavaScript Framework. I took a look at it a little bit. His point is he still believes React is a good default option, but his point is that when you build these components, if you build them as web components, in this case, he's using Astro, but packaging up these kind of components into new HTML elements and being able to just kind of stamp them out, it's going to last longer and be more interoperable if you want to use this code in the future, no matter what framework you're using, whether you're using Solid or Vue or whatever. But he shows like this range slider that he made, and yeah, this pixel art demo thing, and being able to package it up with very little dependencies and the fact that he can use it everywhere. It's good to see web components people are figuring out like where they're good to use versus where they're bad to use. And I think, using them for building your entire application is probably not the right way to go. But if you want these little bits of functionality that you want to drop in your app, I think it's definitely a really cool way to go versus making it like specific to React and JSX, and then you only have like the React pixel art plugin or whatever. And so, you've seen our ecosystem in JavaScript. It's just React this, React that, React whatever. And they want it to be used in other environments. They have to like create a whole new library and then kind of export it to React and that kind of thing. Whereas if we start with this and we have small bits of encapsulation, maybe we can start in a place where it just works everywhere. So that's cool. And there's some discussion here. I was reading about it, and I think this person was talking about how they rewrote an entire thing with vanilla web components. Yeah, I think it was this thread right here. I wrote it all in vanilla web components, and he's got some tips here. So his guiding principles of avoiding shadow DOM unless it's a library. And then I really like this point, using lit HTML or something similar for rendering. Frontendmasters.com, we use all vanilla JavaScript to build all of our software. And I think the concession we made on the team is, yeah, the DOM APIs are not the best. They're pretty verbose and they're pretty difficult. And using lit HTML, it's just a really small DSL over DOM APIs, where it's just like you make a string literal and you throw it at the DOM and it renders, and it's nice. So yeah, I think he's basically just suggesting using something like lit. And yeah, the lit HTML package, like we use extensively on frontendmasters.com for our search and for our data grid component and that kind of thing. And yeah, so I definitely like where the lit project is going, how frameworks handle reactivity. When I read this, like his point is, Solid is the king of the hill in terms of fine-grained reactivity. When you have a large single-page app and you want to re-render things over and over and over really quickly, that kind of thing, like it's clear that Solid.js is the fastest, but Mishko always talks about hydration, the fact that you have to run the app on the server and then run the app on the client. And he's correct that Quick, is able to lazy load code automatically. And so you don't have to run the entire state of the world. You only have to run what you're looking at and what you're actually using. So Quick has a cool model. There's an upcoming Vapor mode in Vue.js, which is nice. Yeah, I'm assuming that's their answer to signals and the performance there. This one I did like when to nest CSS, because I think his point with this article is that whenever you nest, you're increasing specificity. So this is just vanilla CSS. It's cool that CSS nesting has finally got to CSS, but his point is like, hey, if you want, to just style something, just style it, don't nest it. Avoid really deep nesting. You're going to have a hard time overriding those rules if you're using lots of nesting. I really like this example of nesting media queries. This is what I was trying to look at, where it's like you got the H1, but then this is the H1 style inside of this media query. So you can style things to like specific components and nest the media queries inside of it. Just have kind of like encapsulated component styles, which I do like. Yeah, so and then obviously there's layers. So if you do use heavily nested CSS and your specificity is a lot, but you want to put that as like a base layer, and then you can use a new CSS layer, which overrides that regardless of specificity. So modern CSS, It's wild. On frontendmasters.com, we'll probably kick all pre-processing for CSS at some point because CSS has come far enough along where I think everything we use preprocessors for, I don't think we need to. So here's another one, changing colors in SVG using CSS and JavaScript. SVG is awesome. It's, the ability to have like a graphics format that could be just like a couple of, kilobytes. It's like generally human readable and, it can scale up. It's pretty awesome. And the fact that you can just take something like this and change the fill attribute and it will change the color of that path. So in this case, this is like the frame of the glasses. And you can use, CSS variables instead of putting the fill in there, you can have the CSS variable and change it that way. Or you can just, grab that path with JavaScript and change the color, setting the fill attribute. So yeah, SVG is awesome. I think more web developers should know how to use it because it just makes certain problems like much, much easier. And then this is a really cool boxshadows.xyz. It's a really cool shadow editor. And there's different, in this case, there's 4 shadows being applied and you can see the CSS output here. You can change, the visibility of these different shadows and kind of mess with them. So it's pretty fun. Background removal, JavaScript. This is wild that you can do this with Node. Man, I've spent so many hours snipping out images in Photoshop manually, and now you can just do it with a Node library. Wild. Forms Lab looks like this is kind of open source Typeform or SurveyMonkey or whatever. I wonder what the backend is in this, or if it's just a UI. Well, no, there's a Prisma, so it must be Next. Yeah, it must be a Next Tailwind project. Cool. React Magic Motion seems like a cool library. When you wrap it around, it automatically makes these transitions, which reminds me of the new Vue transition API. So I wonder if they have support for Vue transitions or if this is just a standalone library. And this was super fun. Someone actually made a audio music sequencer with Google Sheets. It's pretty awesome. Using the Web MIDI API and hooked up this MIDI equipment to their laptop and wired it into Google Sheets, made some music. So that's it. We should probably raid Melky. He just booked his workshop on Full Stack Go in spring 2024. So definitely wish him luck on that. All right, let's raid Melky. Cheers. See you next time.
We got a raid from Frontend Masters. What's going on?